she finds William K. Riley's LinkedIn.
Because those are the same years that a lot of the, abuse was happening, according to Sasha. Because human resources sounds sketchy as hell, too.
Wait, why? We had a human resources job. She's like, human resources? What's that? It's like, no, that's a very common career. Hey, it's the Goblin Queen. What's up, everybody? I've got a lot of people in the chat here. This is a little bit of a higher turnout than usual, or I don't know. I guess it's around usual. But wanted to shout out everybody here who's new, and definitely before I forget, let me shout out, what was her name? Rose@992, Rose ATT 992. Thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs, gifted memberships, I guess they're called on YouTube. Really appreciate that. That's very legit of you. Welcome to the Goodall, the Goblin Gang, to the 5 lucky people, the new members. But yes, welcome to the stream, everybody. I got a lot of requests this week, and sometimes I get requests, and I will or won't, whatever, do it. But I got a bunch of requests all for the same topic for this week, and it's about the allegations of Sasha Riley. So if people are unfamiliar, this is a very, I want to say, I guess, viral conspiracy theory that has popped up. I mean to say conspiracy theory in a way that's non-condescending or bad. I believe in a lot of conspiracy theories. We are more than open to conspiracy theories on this channel, on this stream. We talk about Epstein evidence. We go through the Epstein files. We talk about Bohemian Grove. We talk about all kinds of stuff that some may consider to be out there. So when I say conspiracy theory, I'm not necessarily using that in a derogatory sense. I think, I think it's important to take these sorts of things seriously. But nonetheless, the Sasha Riley thing is what I would call a conspiracy theory, an alleged organization of 2 or more people who are conspiring together in order to perpetuate some secret hidden darkness. I don't know if that's the exact definition of what a conspiracy is, but that's sort of how I think about it. Before I start, yeah, these are new. These are new. So some of you guys watching might not even know about this yet. If that's the case, buckle up. But I wanted to start out with this. So what I want to know is, although nothing is 100% proven yet, would you say you lean towards Sasha Riley's allegations being true or false? And I'll put the options here: most likely true and most likely false. And I'll give another one called don't know anything about this. But please if you can, try to give me, even if you're not sure, try to give me a true or false answer. Most likely true, most likely false. Just because I'm curious where people fall on this. And if this is the first time you've heard the name Sasha Riley, then feel free to click don't know anything about this. But otherwise, come on now. Take a stand, all right? Take a very couched stand between true or false. I just kind of want to see where we're at here. So far, don't know anything about this is taking this away in a landslide. God dang. All right, 57%. But let's see how it goes. I heard this was really heavy. Told my partner that I needed to wait for the gob stream because I'll need the occasional mushroom joke to get through this. That's funny. Yeah, I'll try to provide mushroom jokes. Way more true than I expected. Oh, interesting. Yeah. No real proof that they aren't real. The name of his adopted dad is in the files. That's true. Great beard. Nothing else I can confirm. Thank you so much. It's been so long since I trimmed it. I gotta do some maintenance, but thanks. Thank you. I got kind of a wild man beard right now. Seen a ton of people on social media debunking these interviews, but then frustratingly just saying things like the math ain't mathin'. Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah, and I mean, that is a frustrating thing. I think that there are a lot of comparisons to be made. I mean, it's not a one-to-one comparison, but I think it's valid to compare the Sasha Riley case and the ensuing kind of virality among a certain political side. It's a very easy comparison to make, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, I think, between Sasha Riley and things like Q Anon, right? Or Pizzagate, where the shoe's on the other foot, so to speak, where now it's mostly liberal types who are kind of into this, but it's not so easy to debunk something like this in a way that doesn't come off as incomplete, unconvincing, insincere to the side that believes in it. I hope that makes sense. The outlandishness of the claims in no way debunks them for me. Yeah, that's very fair. I'll end it right now. Maybe we'll do the same poll. Nothing's 100% proven yet, but do you lean towards Sasha Riley's allegations being true or false? Don't know anything about this. By far the winner. We got 60% of you guys here who have no clue what the H I'm talking about. Very fair. Most likely to be true, that's 34%. And most likely to be false, that's 6%. So that's quite interesting. So of the people who do know about Sasha Riley, a massive majority of you guys consider this to be most likely true, I'll say, which is a pretty broad spectrum. It's, nobody can be 100% certain, but we're leaning towards these being true. That's interesting. I've got something to show you guys. So this will be my first Obsidian stream. I just started using Obsidian. It's awesome. I love it. Got a whole fucking crazy board map here for you guys that we're going to go through. I don't even think we'll probably go through all of these nodes that I've got here, but look at this. Isn't this cool? I can kind of move it around however I want and whatever. Oh God, I can throw the different YouTube videos on here. Very easy. We can watch them right in this app. I'm so excited. So excited. So I'm going to take you guys through this. And I hopefully we'll come to something interesting, or maybe not final by the end of it, but hopefully you guys will have a better idea of what exactly is going on here. Now, this whole Sasha Riley thing is mostly about an interview that a person named Sasha Riley did on a person's Substack. So it's called Outlaws of Chivalry. All right. I don't really know what that means. And it's by someone named Lisa Noel Voldang. Sounds pretty cool. And it is a massive interview. It's, oh God, how long is it? It is, also, I love the way, everything's a little bit weird, the way that this person, Outlaws of, what is it? Justice? Chivalry. The way that this blog organizes everything. It's like, it's in 6 parts, but they label them audio file A of 6, B of 6, C of 6. It's like C of, why didn't you just say numbers? But so there's A to F out of 6 files. There's a lot of hours of interview here with this person named Sasha Riley. And this is a person. So here are some photos that accompany the thing. This is, I guess, ostensibly of Sasha when they were a child. And this is of Sasha on the right here as an adult when they were serving in the military. I believe Sasha Riley goes by they, them pronouns. So I'm going to try and stick to that, but it can be a little bit tough to remember sometimes, but I'll do my best. We're going to go through this to summarize what these are about. These contain some very harrowing accusations of, CSA, child sexual assault, abuse, one of those. They're really disturbing to listen to. And maybe I should say up front here, if this is something that you guys in the audience here might be, if this might resurface some of your own trauma, I'd say to be careful taking in media about this, including this stream. I'm not going to go into graphic detail here. I talk a lot about this sort of thing on stream, going over Epstein stuff, and I always do my best to offer a non-graphic, non-descriptive coverage of these sorts of things. Occasionally, there are certain aspects of these disturbing events that are more necessary to go over, but for the most part, I think we should be able to cover this in broad strokes without being too upsetting. But that said, these allegations are quite a bit more intense and disturbing than even the stuff that we've seen associated with Epstein at all. This is easily the most messed up stuff I've seen. I would say even above, stuff Q Anon and Pizzagate, even that sort of intensity. This is even more than that. This is quite intense. But with a few exceptions, I think I will mostly kind of give broad strokes, kind of a high level overview of these allegations rather than going through them in excruciating detail, which you can kind of find elsewhere. You'll be very, very easy to find elsewhere. Yeah, more Franklin scandal level. Yeah, more Franklin scandal, more maybe like McMartin primary school, whatever that was called, kind of satanic panic stuff. Very, very disturbing stuff. Satanic ritual abuse. And I also want to say, so something else I should mention, some of the stuff here might be hard to believe and hard, maybe some of it doesn't line up. So we'll keep in mind as well, these are stories being told by somebody many decades after they were alleged to have happened. And we can't expect, perfect victims. We have to allow for, very common for people to make mistakes, especially recalling things so far in the future. It would be difficult for me to remember exactly what happened when I was 8 years old and I wasn't even going through anything traumatic. So yeah, I think that it's good to go over these things with a critical eye, but I don't think it's the end of the world if not everything totally lines up. So this interview that we're going to be forward is from November 23rd, 2025. This is a few months old. And it actually happened to blow up on, of all places, Threads just this past week. And I don't have Threads. I don't like Threads. All right. I have a Twitter account. All right. And I still call it Twitter. So I am able to kind of ignore the guy that owns it. But that's my evil social media short form accounts run by the world's richest Nazi. I don't feel the need to move over to fucking the one that Zuckerberg owns or the one that the original Twitter guy owns. I got my thing, whatever. But because all this shit happened on Threads, I was like, okay, I'll make a fucking Threads account, I guess. And they asked me for my fucking phone number, and they asked me for my fucking, I don't know, they wanted me to take a selfie of myself. I was like, what is this? And I did that, and then they were like, we've banned you for life, and there's nothing you can do. So I just didn't make one. Fuck Threads. I want to say that loud and clear. It's bad. I don't respect it, and I didn't care enough to make my own Threads account. That said, I was able to see quite a bit, even without an account on Threads. You can see, I don't know, the first couple layers before it'd be like, if you'd like to see deeper in this conversation, you got to get into your own account. And I'm like, fuck off. But I was able to find Sasha Barros. This is the Sasha Riley person. I was able to find their account. I was able to look through what a lot of people were saying. Very interesting stuff. This really does seem to be the first Threads conspiracy, right? Usually conspiracies come from places like 4chan, 8chan, Twitter, I guess, Facebook for sure. But like the birthplace of a conspiracy theory for it to be Threads, to me, that feels kind of new. This is a new thing. And this is different than the 8chan one, right? This is a lot of liberals, a lot of, riding for Biden type people. In fact, Sasha Riley themselves happened to have been a riding for Biden guy. You can look through their social media and you can sort of see the way people are talking about this, blow up every post you see about the Sasha Riley tapes. This is the most aggressive suppression I've ever seen on this app. These men need to be arrested immediately. Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham, Jim Jordan, Clarence Thomas, Andy Biggs. So yeah, trending Sasha Riley. So this really blew up on Threads. Now, what happened after that? Well, it started blowing up in Threads and then it kind of started going elsewhere. In fact, most notably maybe, it went to the r/Epstein subreddit. And if you were on r/Epstein in the last week, you probably noticed it was nothing but different Sasha Riley posts that were all sort of saying the same thing. And it got to such an extreme extent that the r/Epstein mod team, including friend of the stream, Presidential Penis, I won't have any Presidential Penis slander here, okay? He's a good guy and he does a great job doing thankless work. But he went over, he decided, okay, we're going to limit Sasha Riley posts, and people got very upset about it. We just made a decision to limit new posts regarding the Sasha Riley allegations. And then eventually it escalated to the point where it's effective immediately. If you ignore this announcement, you will receive a 90-day ban. But now there's a new subreddit that's devoted to just Sasha Riley called r/Sasha Riley. And again, I'm comparing this to other things compared to, for example, Q Anon or Pizzagate, where it starts blowing up on 4chan or Reddit, right? In the case of Q started on 4chan and then every post was about it. And 4chan was like, fuck this, no more talking about this. And then it had to move to 8chan, or with Pizzagate, there was a Pizzagate subreddit and then that got banned and then the R. Donald got banned. This is kind of a pattern, but we're seeing this as a liberal conspiracy theory. But it's just interesting to me how similar it is in a lot of ways. A lot of people very upset about the different changes. So I just thought this was funny. Somebody goes in that thread, hey mods, why are my comments being removed? And our TPP, Presidential Penis, one of the mods, is like, because Trump's handlers are paying me in crypto to stifle discussion on his involvement in this scandal. Now, I want to get to his stands on business for sure. And yeah, I mean, if you're on the Epstein subreddit, you probably agree this was a very good move because the sub was kind of unusable. There are still some Sasha Riley threads on there, but generally people don't post about it unless it's something, a new angle, new information, whatever, something like that. So let's get into it a little bit. That's all preamble. So what the heck is Sasha Riley actually saying? Now, I've watched all fucking, how many of these are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've watched all 6 interviews. They are That took me fucking so long. Oh my God, they're so long. I'm sort of mad at the lady that runs this site, Lisa Noel Voldang, because she's like, and we're going to put them all up in full. We're not going to edit them. We're not going to do anything. And listening to them, I'm like, okay, maybe yeah, sure, put them up in full just so that people can listen if they want. But like, you could have edited them a little. You could have edited them into 1 hour-long thing I could have listened to. I didn't need to listen to 5 hours of this, but that's neither here nor there. Lisa Noel Voldang seems like I would say, a strange person. I've got this is their kind of website, Fangs Forward, Faith Up. I create, I build, I lead, and I protect, because I am who I am. Welcome to a glimmer of what I like to call a twinkle of my eye. There's something very funny about it to me. Portfolio, Ultra Agent Industries, Outlaws of Chivalry, Riders United, Doveland, Ultra Future, Uber Babe. What am I looking at here? Mogul Wars, Cyber Sugar Lab Corporation. Okay. For individuals attending elementary school to scientists and administrators at NASA. What? I don't know what that's all about. Some people are kind of making some programs to kill kind of comparisons or satanic panic type stuff. And Lisa certainly seems to be, I would say, a satanic panic type, a satanic ritual abuse type. First of all, here's the page on her Substack. It opens with a Bible quote, Luke 12:2-3. However, nothing is covered up that will not be revealed or hidden that will not be known. Whatever you have said in the dark will be heard in the light, and what you've whispered in the inner rooms will be proclaimed from the housetops. And there are a few times during this where she says to Sasha, oh, that sounds like satanic ritual abuse.
I've come into contact, I've minimized any content with, I'm familiar with a lot of really horrific horror stories that involve Satanists, occult practitioners, theistic Satanists. I've spoken to folks that were able to get out of the theistic Satanist cults. A lot of the torture techniques you describe are similar to theistic Satanist torture techniques, sexual torture, human trafficking, human cannibalism. And what I want to, what's your sense in terms of these parties that what do you remember? Like, was there any overt, I know a lot of the attendees presented themselves as Christians, but their practices are full-blown demonic satanic. Do you have the sense that any of them were actually secretly practicing any sort of occult rituals, or were they just like rich, fiendish, fake Christians?
Yeah, if you know about, SRA, satanic ritual abuse, there's moments during this interview where you can tell that this woman, Lisa, is very pilled on this sort of thing. She's constantly trying to bring it around to Satanism. And I'll just play their response because I think it's interesting.
Conscience.
I think it's the latter. Just rich, fake Christians. I can tell you one thing specifically that Trump did.
Yeah.
So I'll pause it there. But every time she brings up, and is this a satanic thing? Were they doing? He's kind of like, no, not really. So Sasha is not telling a SRA story. He's not telling a story that involves Satanists, that involves these sort of satanic rituals. But I've seen many, many people, including even the woman who brought his story to the world, try and reframe it into these sort of familiar kind of, 70s, 80s programs to kill, whatever, satanic ritual abuse frame, which I think is kind of funny, right? Because the things he's describing are so horrible that if it reminds me of anything, it reminds me of SRA stories. But there's nothing particularly satanic at all about anything that Sasha themselves is saying. So I just thought that was interesting to point out. That's one of a few moments in the, there's another one. This one's kind of funny. I'll play this one too. It's at the end of the second interview, an hour and 13 minutes in. Here we go.
Okay.
So this is the end. They're signing off. He's gone through a bunch of traumatic shit, and Lisa goes,
Much for your help.
You're welcome. And hey, something else before we go. I'll just tell you one of my own, two of my mantras. Mantra isn't the word I'd like to say because I don't practice occultist sort of Buddhism. Two of my mantras.
She's like, here's two of my mantras. Nah, I don't really like the word mantras because I don't practice occultist Buddhism. It's like, what? Buddhism is, what the fuck? You're saying Buddhism is satanic, Babylonian, Canaanite, paganism, whatever? That's crazy. That's crazy. I do find it very funny that she won't even let herself say the word mantra when she's trying to give Sasha like hey, I have two really cool sayings that I like to say, but she accidentally says mantra and she's like, but don't get the wrong idea. I'm not like an occultist. I just think that's funny.
Those I guess. Honor
Occultist
self,
Buddhism.
honor all.
And so, okay, so, but I will let you hear her two sayings, mantras.
Word I'd like to say, because I don't practice occultist sort of Buddhism, two of my mottos, I guess. Honor self, honor all.
Honor self, honor all.
Is one, and fangs forward, faith up is another.
Fangs forward, faith up. So yeah, I found that really funny. I mean, hey, I'm sure she's a lovely lady. She looks like she lives on I don't know, some kind of organic farm or something like that. I'm guessing just from this photo, she looks unvaccinated. She looks like she's a free thinker. She's probably, I don't know, works at an organic food store in the supplement section. Hey, she's probably got a whole stash of ear candles and neti pots. She seems like a good hang. She probably has a drum circle at her, commune place every month, at least once a quarter. She seems great. I just will say she does seem a little weird, but we're not really here for her. We're here for what she was able to show the world, which is the testimony of Sasha Riley. So that's actually really true. Honor self, honor all. That is a satanic thing. She's like, I don't want to be an occultist Buddhist or anything, but do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Aleister Crowley. Anyway. All right. So I went through all of the stuff. I went through every single one of those dang long ass interviews. And I made a timeline, a timeline of alleged events, because they are kind of all over the place, Sasha Riley. And so I heard it and I tried to write down when it seemed that things happened. And I came up with this. This one I made myself, but I realized afterwards that a lot of people did the same thing as me. In fact, I found this one down here that's probably even better than the one that I made. But I'd still want to go over the one that I made. We'll look at this one after because I think there's some interesting stuff in there as well. But the one that I made, I'm just going to be able to talk about easier because I made it. So here we go. Timeline of alleged events. Now, Sasha Riley is born in 1973. Okay, 1973. So over here, I mean, on the right-hand side here, I've got age and AOAP. That stands for age of alleged perpetrator, because it's hard to keep track. He's making a lot of accusations of people who we know now, who are in the public eye now, but it all takes place in the 70s and 80s. So I wanted to be able to be like, and how old would this person have been? How old would this person have been? So these are what the columns are. So Sasha Riley, born 1973. In 1977, he's adopted by a man named William Kyle Riley, who is a pilot and Vietnam veteran. Sasha says that William Kyle Riley, who I'll just call WKR, was a pilot for Epstein. For Jeffrey Epstein, he was somebody who worked for him to carry out these sort of abuse parties that we'll get into in a second. Now, Sasha was adopted in 1977 when he was 4, and a couple of years later, in 1979, was when he remembers the abuse beginning, where he began to be abused by his family. And his father, his adoptive foster father, would kind of traffic him to other family members and friends in kind of a local way. But then in 1980, when Sasha was 7, he began to become trafficked in what he calls the Trump/Epstein trafficking ring. Now, so you're probably the Trump/Epstein trafficking ring. That's interesting. So Sasha is alleging that the trafficking ring that he was being kind of shopped around in, for lack of a better term, in the 80s was run not by Epstein, but by Trump. Trump was the one who ran everything. Epstein was an employee of Trump who would coordinate all of these abuse events by bringing clients to parties and also finding ways to ship the victims to these parties, figuring all this out. That was Epstein's job. Epstein was like kind of the party planner in a way. So this is what the claims are. So this is a very different dynamic. What he's describing here is a vast criminal conspiracy of abuse that is completely different from anything we've ever heard of from Epstein ever, for many reasons. And we'll get into that in more detail later. We'll return to it. But in 1981 to I think 82, Sasha lived in Enterprise, Alabama, not on a farm, but farms are in Alabama, Tennessee, and I think Texas. In those 3 states, that is where most of these abuse parties took place. Now, when he started getting trafficked, It looks like this was in 1981 to 82 when he was in Alabama. It began when he was 8 or 9. Not exactly sure when the beginning of it was, but when he was quite young. He also, I've heard him say that trafficking started when he was 9, so maybe it was 82, I don't know. But 81 to 86 was the Epstein/Trump period. He was trafficked to farms in the South. He attended these hedonistic parties that would be attended by Epstein associates. These parties are, and I'll let you hear directly from Sasha. These parties sound kind of surreal, to be honest. Yeah, 3253. Hang on. I'll get these up here. 3253. Here we go. So he's going to describe the parties to us.
To clarify, so when Samantha was killed, these were all of these parties at the farm or similar locations to the farm where there was
it was multiple farms.
Multiple farms, and usually
yes.
It was parties. So there was individuals like Trump that were flown into the parties, and
yes, and they would have like a building, a house, and they would usually have like a tent set up, and it was almost like a little, I don't want to say a fair, it wasn't that big, they didn't have rides or anything, but it was a kind of a coordinated deal. Sometimes they would have the bare knuckle fighting. That probably is how my dad got involved with these people, because you've got boxing and stuff like that on TV, but that's really all you had back in the 70s and 80s.
So although, I'm not sure if he gets into it here, but although his father, WKR, William K. Riley, was a pilot, he was also a bare knuckle boxer, according to Sasha. So Sasha is speculating that that's how his father got involved with this scene in the first place. He started as a bare knuckle boxer and then eventually was like, oh, I have a child I could traffic to you guys as well, and I could fly. I don't know. Worked his way up the ladder, so to speak.
The more the MMA type of stuff wasn't allowed, and these fights were a little more gruesome. They didn't fight to the death or anything like that, but they were bloody, and these were fights, and not just boxing. And so the rich people would pay to see that. Sometimes they'd have like a band playing.
Band playing.
Just like what you would expect at like a fair or something,
So the rich folks would.
So I find this, what an insane thing to picture in your mind. There are tents. It's on a barn. It's at a farmyard in Tennessee, Alabama, wherever. There's a barn, a farm, whatever, animals, who knows. There's a barn. There's tents. It feels like a fair. There's bare knuckle boxing, live music. People are being flown in, all of these kind of coastal elite types, politicians, celebrities. He describes there being people who spoke all kinds of different languages with all kinds of crazy accents. Almost everyone is white. He does say that there was one black guy who showed up, which we'll get into later. But there's all this going on. And another aspect of the entertainment is horrific child abuse. Absolutely horrific child abuse is also happening at these parties. So this is, again, completely different from anything we've heard about Epstein or what Epstein was doing at any time, much less the 1980s. But this is his story. So he describes bare knuckle boxing, live music, drugs, child abuse like a fair. Now, this one I don't have a date for, but it was sometime during this 1981 to 86 period, he noticed the only black man at these parties was Clarence Thomas. And Clarence would have been 33 to 38 at this time, well before he, joined the Supreme Court in 1991. And Sasha does say that he remembers his dad being really excited in 91 when Clarence Thomas was named to the Supreme Court, being like, wow, remember him? Oh, wow, he was the one black guy or whatever. Another guy, he says, was at this party. And the reason that he remembers Clarence Thomas, I said he was the only black guy, so he really stood out. But another guy he remembers at this party was Lindsey Graham. He said that, yes, he was at these parties and he acted really effeminate, if you can believe it, if you can believe that. Lindsey Graham was acting extremely effeminate, and I guess even more so than he would be acting in his regular life. And Riley is pretty sure he was assaulted by Lindsey Graham, but he can't be 100%. He's like, yeah. Oh, yeah, I don't know. A lot of it is kind of vague, which is not unusual for survivors of, abuse to not have a perfect memory. But Clarence Thomas, he's pretty sure he wasn't abused by. Lindsey Graham, he's pretty sure he was, but he doesn't quite remember. Okay, now this is going to be, I think, the most intense part of my retelling of the story, because I do feel it's kind of necessary to get into details here. This is his first encounter with Donald Trump, happened from somewhere between 1981 and 1982, when Sasha would have been 9 to 10 years old. Trump would have been 35 to 36. This is his first encounter with Trump. He's had either 2 or 3 encounters with Donald Trump, he says. This is the first one. So he describes Donald Trump. He says Trump's kink, the thing that really got Trump off was watching people suffer, looking in someone's eyes as they were being tortured or whatever. And he wanted to kill somebody. He wanted to kill something. And so at this party, he was given a litter of puppies to drown. And Sasha just graphically describes how not all of them are drowned. He describes how Trump forced him to watch as he murdered a whole bunch of puppies. And then Trump, there was another thing Trump liked to do where he would sit on Sasha's chest, watching the life drain out of him as he choked to death. And then right before he died, he'd get up and be like, "Oh, you didn't die? I meant to kill you." And he'd do it again. And he'd just do that over and over and over again until he got bored. I mean, he'd always get up right before Sasha lost consciousness or died or whatever. And Sasha says that Trump paid Sasha's parents for this first encounter $25,000 in 1981-82. I mean, that would be a lot of money back then. I mean, that'd be a lot of money today. But yeah. And this is something that people have talked about. People have talked about all of the times that Trump's been like, he died like a dog. Oh, he was choking like a dog. He does say that a lot. He does say that a lot. Look at him. He's choking like a dog. He can't breathe. I think I even have one sec. I think I have a bunch of clips of Trump being like, he died like a dog.
And he said he died and he doesn't even know he was fired. We've had Obama far too long. The last election should have been won, except Romney choked like a dog. He choked. He went, "I can't breathe."
Romney is, very embarrassed that he did so badly 4 years ago. The guy choked like a dog. Romney choked, okay? He choked like a dog. A lot of people...
What the fuck is that expression? He choked like a dog? The fuck are you talking about? No one says that. But interesting. I mean, yeah, he's got this. This is a story about him killing a bunch of puppies. I will point out, never have seen anything like this before from Trump. This is the first time I've ever heard anything even remotely close to this type of allegation about Trump. Okay, there you go. 25K would be $83,404.92 in today's dollars. I think this is a bit of a reach. I mean, yeah, this does seem, it's not characteristic to me. It's out of character to me, even as a guy that does not like Trump at all. There's so much here that, being into men or boys in this case, right? Being this kind of a sadist, it raises an eyebrow for sure, right? But who knows? He also mentions, this one's a little odd, from 82 to 86, he mentions that people spoke, he heard his parents and people at these parties speaking about Vladimir Putin, but he's not sure he was ever at the parties. They also spoke about Bill Clinton. Again, not certain that either of those two guys were ever at the parties. And that is a weird year to be hearing about these guys. Vladimir Putin would have been 29 to 34. KGB dude, not a celebrity, not a world leader, not really a known guy. But apparently he heard people talking about Vladimir Putin and he heard people talking about Bill Clinton. Again, this is early to be hearing about Bill Clinton. Was he even involved in Arkansas politics back then? Okay, so he would have been the governor of Arkansas during this time. So you know what? I mean, yeah, it makes sense that he would have heard about him. I mean, that's a Southern kind of politics thing they might have been talking about at the time. So yeah, that's not, oh, whoops, guys. Sorry. I forgot that I wasn't showing you. I got two apps right now open. So Obsidian's great, by the way. I've been seeing some people being like, yo, Obsidian's fucking awesome. It's good. It's good. I'm totally new to it. And this is what I was able to do. My first time ever using it is make this massive, crazy board. This is a real advancement in the fine art of tying red string to bulletin board. All right. Now, moving on here. This part is extremely fucked, and I'm going to kind of cover it in broad strokes here. This doesn't involve any celebrities, but apparently for 2 months, Sasha became a member. They moved to Tennessee from Alabama, was it? They were at before, I think. Yeah, they're in Enterprise, Alabama. They moved to Tennessee, and he joined a child brothel, and he was the only boy. The others were all girls. At this child brothel, they filmed a bunch of CSAM, and I mean, he said he was in at least 10 films. Won't go into detail about that. A lot of the other girls there were murdered in front of him or just there. Some of them committed suicide. Others were killed on tape as some kind of horrifying snuff film. He had he started a friendship with this one girl there named Samantha, who was black. And she was kind of the leader, I guess, of the brothel, because he says, and I have a tweet where he talks about this, or sorry, not a tweet. What do you call it? A thread, a strand. I don't know what you call it, but apparently Samantha, this black girl at the thing, had access to a gun. Somebody asked him or them on Threads, can you explain how you and Samantha had access to a gun? And Sasha said, she ran the house. The gun belonged to the person she worked for. So I guess he said that there was a fat, kind of big-bellied hillbilly that ran the place, and he had a gun, but he was never there, so I guess Samantha ran it. It's a little bit confusing. This part, I will just say, sounds very, I don't know, it's a little hard to believe, but he tells the story very consistently. Every time he's asked a question about his time at this brothel, he's very quick with the answer. It seems like something that, if it's not true that he did this, I'm not saying that he's intentionally lying or anything like that. I think that if this is something that didn't happen, he has a very good handle on all of the different aspects of it. And he's able to talk about it at length without contradicting himself. And, a lot of it seems far-fetched, though. I will definitely say that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true. It's just, I'll make that observation right now. This would have been when he was 11 to 12 years old, when he was at this brothel. He was in about 10 different CSAM movies. So after the brothel, CSAM studio, the Rileys moved to Alabama. And at some point during this period, around 1983, Sasha was having behavioral issues, as you may expect from somebody who's going through this level of abuse. And he was put into foster care. And he was so wild and ungovernable, in his words, that he was given, so this is, okay, I'm just going to say it. He was given to the famous primatologist, Jane Goodall, the woman that worked with gorillas and chimpanzees. She was brought in to look after him because he was so, I guess, feral or kind of animal-like due to his experience that they needed to bring in a primatologist in order to, I don't know, be able to help him. And after this experience in foster care, working with Jane Goodall, he was brought back to live with his foster parents, the ones who were trafficking him, William K. Riley and his wife, Lynn. And I guess I didn't get into this, but he does describe Lynn as being incredibly sadistic, even worse than William K. Riley. Lynn, his foster mother, was exceptionally cruel. There is no evidence of Jane Goodall in Alabama at the time. I looked into this because that was something that, so maybe, I had a bunch of corroborating evidence, and I was going to get into this later, but maybe I'll get into this part now, because I'm sure that the Jane Goodall thing, people are going to be like, what? That was something that really jumped out to me. I was like, Jane Goodall, seriously? But let me show you this. So Jane Goodall, well, actually, so Jane Goodall has a charity called Roots and Shoots USA. And let me see here. So there's a youth thing where she works with kids. You can make change happen right here, right now. And so, as you know, as I've sort of discussed, there's a lot of discussion about Sasha Riley online right now. And the Jane Goodall thing gets brought up a lot to be like, that is definitely not true, right? That's definitely not true. And people found, actually, she does have a charity where she might do something like this. It's not specifically in Alabama. I don't know how much Jane Goodall gets involved in this. And I'll also point out, I did a little bit more digging, and it turns out Roots and Shoots is actually, it was only founded in 1991. So it was founded long after 1985, when Sasha said that he worked with Jane Goodall. At the time that he is saying, she was not doing this type of work, at least as far as we know. So I would say the Jane Goodall thing is almost certainly not true. Now, does that mean that the rest of it is not true? No. I think that this happened to him when he was a traumatized kid. Whatever is true about the Sasha Riley story, I don't have difficulty believing that he suffered abuse as a child. He was a traumatized kid. He had a difficult upbringing. Okay, let's just say that. But I think it's noteworthy that a part of his story involves a celebrity like Jane Goodall that, we can't be certain of anything, but I think we can be nearly certain that this aspect of the story is not true. And it's worth kind of meditating on that, I think, because if he can kind of, I believe the correct term is confabulate. If he can, presuming he is telling the truth to the best of his recollection, if he can confabulate one celebrity that he crossed paths with, does that perhaps mean that some of the other celebrities in his story were also not there? We'll get into that. The name of the actual camp that Jane Goodall did is Roots and Shoots. But I mean, he does not say he was at a camp. He says he was at foster care when she was brought in. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, you know what? I missed something here. This was just an interesting detail. So I mentioned earlier the brothel that he was in. I guess he was there for 2 months. And when his mother, Lynn, came to pick him up, she was underpaid by the hillbilly that ran the brothel. And she was angry. And she threatened to call the police. And she talked about getting her lawyer involved. And the hillbilly just laughed because he was like, what the fuck are you going to do, Lynn? You're going to file a case against me for our fucking CSAM operation ripping you off? You aren't going to do that. I'm sure there were no contracts involved in this sort of, criminal work. 1985. So I think this is in Alabama, but they're still doing these farm parties. So he goes to a party and Jim Jordan is there. You know Jim Jordan? Republican, what is he? Congress guy? Now, Jim Jordan was there. He would have been 18 years old at this time. Jim Jordan's a lot younger than all these other guys, but apparently it was Jim Jordan. He was 18 and Sasha was 12. And he describes this part's a little odd. He was involved in a bare knuckle boxing match. As you guys know, there would be bare knuckle boxing fights at these barn parties or farm parties. And at this age, at 12, he had this, I guess, role at these parties where the offer would be, hey, bare knuckle box with Sasha. And if you can beat them, then you can do whatever you want with them. And Sasha says he was 12, but he was a really good fighter. And his dad was a boxer and his dad taught him how to box. So he could box off almost anybody. He could win against almost anybody, even at 12. He was able to beat most of these grown pedophiles that would try to box him. He was able to beat them. But when he fought against Jim Jordan tackled him to the ground, kind of fought dirty, I guess, and then started to took advantage of him, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry to laugh, but I feel this is a darkly, that's dark. That's some good dark comedy. This story is like if Forrest Gump was a victim of trafficking. Yeah, it is kind of like that. There are a lot of celebrities, a lot of big kind of historical moments, it seems like. But yes, the Jim Jordan one is another weird one. The fact that he would have been so young, 18, not a political force at that time. But that is what he says. Now, 84 to 86, he has his final encounter with Donald Trump. And again, I'm going to go into this one in a little bit more detail. I think it's worth, because this is the Donald Trump parts are the parts that people are the most fired up about. And this is the part that people most want the government or the state or whoever to look into. So let me let you know what this is all about. The final encounter with Donald Trump happened sometime between 84 and 86. Probably towards the end of that. Sasha and Patricia. So Patricia was another victim of trafficking who was around the same age as Sasha, around 11 to 13 years old at this time. They met each other because they were both at the brothel that they were at before. They were brought to a party and the adults told them, oh, don't worry, you guys are adults now. You can go off on your own, do whatever you want. The two of them go off and they started having sex with each other and they thought they were in some private place. But then a bunch of hillbillies, he says a bunch of adult hillbillies dressed in country western outfits burst into the room. For about 30 minutes, they assaulted Patricia. And then in front of Sasha, they shot Patricia in the head, killing her. And they pointed the gun at Sasha and they said, you need to do whatever the next guy who comes in the room wants you to do. You got to do it. And the next guy to come in the room was Trump. So Trump, I will not go into detail here, but Trump does a bunch of horrifying stuff to Sasha. And then Trump decides that he wants to have Sasha, what's a nice way of putting this? He wants to have Sasha top him. So Trump lies on the ground on his belly and he's not looking back at Sasha. And Sasha is like, this guy, whoever he is evil. This guy's pure evil and I need to basically kill him. So Sasha picked up a tent stake, like the little thing that you hammer into the ground with a rope attached to it to keep a tent from flying away and whatever, wind, to keep your tent in place, to keep the fly, whatever, up. So he grabbed a tent stake and he says he put a condom over the tent stake and he inserted the tent stake into Trump's anus and then he kicked it as hard as he could. And he was trying to kill Trump with this. And this did not kill Trump. Trump started screaming and in pain, and a bunch of adults with guns, I guess the same kind of hillbillies from before, they burst into the room and Trump had to be airlifted out of the party. And Sasha was taken away from the party. And he was taken away. And he told this story many, many times over the tapes. And so I sort of I've pieced this together from a lot of different tellings of the story. Sometimes when he tells it, it seems like they took him right from that party to a different party the same night, a different one of these parties the same night. And I was like, what? They're having two of these the same night in Alabama? They're that popular? You can have, wouldn't you be like, oh, you're doing your fucking pedophile party tonight? We're having one. Can you at least stagger it? Do it, whatever. But no, it isn't that. He says it's about a week later, Sasha's brought to another party, and his father, WKR, William K. Riley, says, Sasha, it's time to face the music. You can't hurt rich people. You can't hurt people like Trump. They're protected. So now you got to face the music. You need to receive your punishment. Otherwise, we're in big trouble. You need to be punished. So they take him to another rural child abuse party. At this party, he is severely beaten by 8 to 10 adults and urinated on. They broke his ribs. They really hurt him. He says he has a deformed rib cage from this to this day. Didn't go to the hospital about this. At some point during the beating, his father intervened, trying to save Sasha because he was like, whoa, guys, don't kill him. And then the group started beating the shit out of his father as well. Then, all right, I don't know. A bunch of other horrible shit happened. I'm just going to skip over this next part because it's not, I don't know. I don't feel like it's necessarily getting into it, but suffice to say, horrific shit continues to happen to this guy. Now, the final party that he ever went to, this is the worst he's ever abused. This is the last time he's ever brought to one of these parties because it's so severe. And it is, this time he is abused by a man named Andy Biggs, who I didn't actually know even who that was. But Andy Biggs is an American politician serving as U.S. representative for Arizona's 5th congressional district. This guy. So apparently this dude, when he would have been, how old? 28. So he would have been, I think that's pretty young. I don't know if he had a career back then. Let's just check real quick. And this was in what year? 1986. So in 1986, what was Biggs doing? So he would have just graduated from Brigham Young University, the Mormon University. He was a lawyer, I guess, at that point. And then eventually he went back to school. Much later, it looks like. Okay, so he would have been pretty young. He worked as a lawyer in Hobbs, New Mexico. So it's a little unusual to me how he would have fell in with this crowd, but who knows? Long before he was a politician, though. And he beat him so badly that it looked like he was going to die, according to Sasha. And his father he took him away again. His father stepped in, resulted in a heated argument between WKR and Biggs. I said, I didn't say you could kill him. And this was also apparently, this beating by Andy Biggs was also part of the, punishment for what he did to Trump. All right, 1986, great news. Sasha has ended his time being trafficked to the Epstein Trump network. In 1991, Sasha's dad was very excited that Clarence Thomas joined the Supreme Court. 1991 to 1998, Sasha was in the army. He at some point became an amateur boxer. Later, there's a few things about his father. He says his father tried to kill him with a Chevy van, throwing him into a pool, throwing him down a flight of stairs. Local authorities started some investigations. They moved to Tennessee from Texas. There was another murder attempt. It happened in Florida with his father and mother trying to kill him. 2002 to 2016, Sasha joined the army again. During his time in the army in 2009, there was okay, here's another part. This is kind of how the whole thing starts. The first interview, he begins with him talking about this. He says that when he was in the army in 2009, one of his fellow soldiers was caught with CSAM, child sexual abuse material. And the video that he had apparently was one with Sasha Riley and their friend Samantha from when they were at the brothel. And during the investigation of this guy's material, the people who were doing the tribunal were like, whoa, that looks like Sasha. And so they went to Sasha as part of the investigation to be like, well, let's see if it is him and we can ask him how old he was so we can know if this really is an underage person. And they went to him and they told him they had it. And he was like, yes, that was me. I did do videos like that. But Sasha says he wasn't shown the video, but apparently he was just questioned as part of this investigation. Now, I I'm not an army guy. I don't really know how those sorts of things work. That story does seem kind of far-fetched to me as well. Is that what they would do in that situation? Would like first of all, the chances that you would see somebody as a kid and be like, oh, that's the guy from down the fucking barracks or whatever. I recognize that guy. That's him. That seems so weird. No records have been found of this army investigation yet. Things are still new. I have seen people kind of looking into it, but nothing's been found. Someone has apparently said that they were a sergeant with Sasha, and they said that they were involved in this, but I don't know, that one hasn't been verified to my liking, but who knows? This is all very early, right? This only blew up a few days ago, but I will say this is one of the parts of the story that strains my credulity the most. Yeah, they were able to recognize him from his youth. I mean, you know, you can see these pictures here of Sasha. Apparently this is him when he was 10. You know, this is him when he was in the army. You know what I mean? Like, how would you ever put those together? Unless he has a specific birthmark, maybe. I don't know. But who knows? So it's a lot, right? It's a lot. It's a big story. Just listening to the audio, many parts of it stood out to me as it's hard for me to kind of take them 100% seriously. And I understand that I think there's a very good impulse to believe survivors, believe the children, believe the people who come forward with allegations, right? I think that that's a great impulse. I think that we should always support survivors, support victims, support people making allegations. I think support is important. I think that if you have someone in your personal life, a family member, a friend who comes to you with something heavy like this, I think it's important to support them and show them you're there and listen to them and reaffirm that they're not crazy and they're whatever. Like, I think that's a very useful thing. But when it comes to something like this, these are substantial, very heavy accusations of abuse against specific people, I think that it can kind of be a thought-terminating cliche to say, like, you know, believe survivors, believe victims. It ends up translates to, you know, believe allegations. And we cannot just believe allegations without investigation, without looking into them, and without any corroborating evidence. If you only listen to the audio, you don't have any of that. I've seen, you know what, I think I can actually show you.
I have two things to say about the Sasha Riley recordings. Number one, it's not your job or my job or anybody on the internet's job to determine whether or not what Sasha Riley is saying is true. That needs to be determined in a court of law. It is our responsibility, if we're moral people, to make sure as many people as possible hear the testimony of Sasha Riley. The second point I want to make is that a lot of people are saying, if it turns out his story is false.
And I'll just say, you know, to an extent, yeah, it's not my job to do that. It's not anyone's job. But I mean, I think that we should be able to use our best judgment as whatever non-professionals, as long as we are doing conspiracy theory discussion. A big part of that is research. And I think it's okay to look into these things. Obviously, it's not my job to do so, but this is a story that's really making the rounds. And before I would want to make sure that as many people as possible hear it, I want to make sure that this is something worth spreading. I think that's...
It will undermine the testimony of...
Yeah, I think that's all we really need to hear from this one. But I mean, I get the impulse. I think this comes from a good place, but, you know, I disagree with it. I think that you could use this same logic to say stuff like QAnon or Pizzagate or, you know, any kind of conspiracy theory should be spread without any examination. No, our duty is to spread these allegations, not to investigate them. I think we don't need to be a court of law or professional whatever in order to investigate things. In fact, if we leave everything to the courts, there's a lot of shit we're never going to know because the justice system is incredibly biased and very often has horrific outcomes. So I don't agree with that, but I do think it's coming from a good place there. So I have a couple things I want to go over here now that we've gone through the timeline and we've decided, yes, we would like to investigate this more and we would like to kind of decide if this is worth looking into. Some corroborating evidence. So, well, first I'll say, I think somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, this is not the first time that Sasha's made these allegations. As you can see from my timeline up here, November 23rd, this is when this thing was originally posted. And then just this past week is when it blew up on Threads, but it was recorded last year. But Sasha had been posting about this on Threads since July. And even before that, in 2021, Sasha Riley had been posting a lot of the specifics here on his Facebook account. And you can still find these. These are all still up. Another piece of evidence, people found his father, William K. Riley, on Facebook, I think as of 2 days ago or so. His Facebook is shut down. And people pointed out one of the people that his father is following on Facebook is Lindsey Graham. Again, these are really intense accusations, and I'm going to need a little bit more than this. It would be another thing if Lindsey Graham was following. This one is just like, okay, he's following WKR. I mean, he's following Lindsey Graham. I mean, a lot of people follow him. That doesn't necessarily mean that he was at these abuse parties. But if we look at Sasha's page, since 2021, he goes over a lot of the same stuff. And it's very consistent. Like I said, he's told these stories many, many, many times, and it all fits together. He doesn't contradict himself. You may find the stories hard to believe, but they're remarkably consistent. I'll say that for him. He tells some really sad stories. Donald Trump, the first time he assaulted me, went like this. He talks about the puppies, blah, 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 the beating. He talks about injuring Donald Trump, what they did to me as a result of injuring Donald. This is all from 2021. Andy Biggs, he mentions. This part I do want to take a second to look at. This is a post of his from 2021 as well. The following will corroborate all or parts of my recent posts. 1, Donald's medical records. 2, my medical records. 3, CPS involvement in Texas, Tennessee, and Alabama. 4, the lady at the shoe store. 5, Ray Slauson, our neighbor in New Brockton, Alabama. 6, a polygraph given to me at a behavioral health hospital in Alabama. 7, I'll take another polygraph. 8, there was heroin in my system when CPS got involved in Alabama. 9, multiple police investigations in Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida. 10, witnesses after my dad tried to facilitate the accidents to kill me. 11, our neighbors from the duplex in Enterprise, Alabama, which I didn't go over that, but there is a part where his mother is torturing someone to death, and their screams in their duplex apartment concern their duplex neighbors. So that's what he's talking about there. 12, I went to 9 different schools, some of which had records of incidents and requested police involvement and CPS intervention themselves. 13, the pornography that still exists. 14, the FBI investigation into the pornography. 15, my dad got a speeding ticket on our way to bury Sammy. There's probably more, but those are a good starting point. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's worth pointing out. Yeah. He goes over a lot, he tags his dad. He shows a photo of his dad. He's posted a lot of stuff. I mean, none of it is in and of itself evidence, but this part is interesting because it's like, okay, those are 15 things where he's saying evidence does exist and I want to dig it up. All right. So there's that. Let's look at some of the other corroborating stuff here, though. There's this photo that people have been posting a lot. Apparently this could be Epstein with a young Sasha, and not sure why this other guy's circled. I'll just say straight up right now, this is AI. This is an AI photo. This is not real. This is not Epstein's island. Epstein did not have his island in the 80s. Epstein did not have gray hair like this in the 80s. Epstein's face did not look like this at any point in his life. This is an AI face. And Epstein also was not known for trafficking boys. In fact, aside from Sasha Riley, we have zero allegations of boys being trafficked. This is it. So this is an AI picture. So this thing can be completely disregarded. Oh, the Epstein in Texas. Okay, this is from 1980. This is from before we knew about, the stuff in Alabama. This is what Epstein looked like in 1980. This is when, if you haven't heard about this yet, this is nuts. This is 27-year-old Epstein was named Bachelor of the Month by Cosmo magazine in 1980. This is a little thing. Bachelor of the Month. Financial strategist Jeffrey Epstein, 27, talks only to people who make over $1 million a year. Now, this part I thought was interesting. If you're a cute Texas girl, write this New York Dynamo at 55 Water Street, yada, yada, yada. And I mean, there's not a lot of evidence that Epstein had anything to do with Texas, but I just thought this was interesting. In 1980, he's saying he's looking for a cute Texas girl. Texas being one of the places I think Sasha mentioned living at, right? I think that's right. Didn't he? Oh yeah, Texas. Yeah, Texas. So yeah, it's something. It's not nothing. But okay, here's something though that like a lot of people have been talking about. Epstein files. Does any of this show up in the Epstein files? Well, oh boy, this whole thing. Look at this. My fucking. Have you guys noticed my mic keeps slowly drifting back, slowly falling back, and I keep moving further and further away. I'm like, and hang on, let me just move this. There we go. Yeah. I'm reminded of j'accuse. Like the accusations are so specific. It feels like if the admin doesn't sue him to shut him up, then it's practically acknowledging guilt. Zorro Ranch was in the 90s. But yeah, it feels like if the admin doesn't sue him to shut him up, then it's practically acknowledging guilt. I mean, maybe, but you could also argue this is one of those things like where people were calling Rumsfeld a lizard guy. Certain allegations are so out of nowhere, so untrue that even addressing them causes this kind of, I guess, Streisand effect. It doesn't help you to acknowledge them, even to fight them, even to sue them. It'll just give it more air, give it more life. At this point, I feel like they will have to do something, but I don't know. Maybe they'll just continue to ignore it. And then all of these people who are super into the Sasha thing will feel they've been vindicated. But these are actual things from the Epstein files, okay? So Bill Riley from Coral Springs, Florida, was someone listed on Brad Edwards' supplemental witness list, witnesses which may be called if the need arises. Brad Edwards was a lawyer, an attorney for the victims of Epstein. He represented Virginia Giuffre, Anushka DiGiorgio, a bunch of other people. One of the main guys involved in the Epstein case prosecution. He has a book, A Relentless Pursuit, that's quite good, I would say, one of the best books you can read to understand the Epstein case more. And this is from his witness list. So you can find, I got the link here, justice.gov, yada, yada, yada. There's another thing from the Palm Beach Police Incident Report. They found Mr. Riley he worked for a private investigator firm called Riley and Riley, William Riley. Down here, Virginia named William Riley as Epstein's attorney. This is from one of Virginia's depositions, which we have had for quite a while. Virginia, how long was it after that phone call from the FBI person you were contacted by Mr. Epstein's lawyers? Like last week, it was back to back to each other. I remember being so scared, blah, 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 blah. It was about a week later, I was called by his attorney. Who was it that contacted you? Do you remember? I want to say Bill Riley. Oh, sorry, gang. Not showing you guys what I'm looking at. I want to say Bill Riley, but he might have been from the FBI. No, it was Bill Riley. Bill Riley. Not sure if that's his correct name, but that's what's coming to mind. They go on about Bill Riley, Bill Riley, Bill Riley, Bill Riley. I know Bill Riley was the first guy to contact me, one of Epstein's assistants. And down here, this is from Nadia Marchinkova's, deposition where she just pled the fifth to everything. She didn't answer anything, but she was asked twice about Bill Riley. Where are those computers today? Fifth, were they taken by his investigator, Bill Riley? Fifth, do you know Bill Riley? Fifth, all right, so more Bill Riley stuff from the Epstein files. These are from the Epstein emails. He mentions to David Schoen, one of his friends, I think was Bill Schoen. Was he his lawyer? I forget. Some guy who worked for him, but they had a friendship as well. And David Schoen goes, I'm sure you have lawyers you feel are the best for you. I hope that's the case. And then Jeffrey Epstein goes, William Riley. Yeah, I got the best lawyer, William Riley. Take that to me. Down here, this is a private log for Epstein victims. Bill Riley was subpoenaed, and he was subpoenaed on December 19th, 2009, and deposed September 29th. Wait, that don't make no sense. Sorry, September, not October. He was deposed 10 days after that, September 29th, 2011. Okay, so Bill Riley, that's a name. That name is showing up. That does seem, yeah. She pleads the fifth 100 times. That doesn't tell us anything, but it does. His name is showing up. They knew him. They knew this guy, Bill Riley, and they were asking people about him. They didn't find anything out about it from Marchinkova, but they asked him about it. All right. Well, this one, I looked into this one, the police report, and look at this. The cop that wrote this report, looking into this whole thing, I researched their webpage, Riley Kirali, which also show various cases which they assisted. He notes down the website, www.rileykirali.com. Now, this website don't exist anymore, but it does exist on the Wayback Machine. If you go on the Internet Archive, one of the best remaining websites on the shitty internet, they have it. It's a weird little Web 2.0 when everything was made with Flash. And we got a little bit more information about William K. Riley. So, okay, not William K. Riley. So this person is William H. Riley. Can you guys read that? If you're watching this on a big screen TV, I'm sure you can read it. But if you're watching it on your phone, let me read this out to you. Riley Kirali is owned by William H. Riley and Stephen N. Kirali. William H. Riley began his professional investigative experience in 1966 when he joined the City of Miami Police Department. He spent 8 years working undercover, investigating drug smuggling and money laundering cases throughout the United States and Central and South America. In 1968, he was named Officer of the Year and awarded a gold medal for valor, the department's highest honor for his undercover work as a special investigator for 3 Dade County grand juries in Mexico and South America. In 76, yada, 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 goes into what he's doing in the 70s. Okay, 79, Mr. Riley left public service and entered the private sector and started his own investigative firm, handling investigations dealing with internal theft, bankruptcy fraud, securities fraud, and white-collar crimes. So right off the bat here, I'm like, okay, this guy was doing corporate lawyer, evil fucking shit, white collar crime shit in the late 70s and 80s, back when William K. Riley, the guy that we've been hearing about, was a pilot, a Vietnam veteran who was living in the South, running all of these parties for horrible people. This doesn't seem like it can possibly be the same guy. Sasha does not show up at all in the files so far. And if you express any skepticism towards this, a lot of the Sasha Riley kind of believers will say, well, that's why we need to get the files out. And I agree. We do need to get the files out. Let's get the files out. Let's see what's in those frickin' things. But the files that we have don't mention Sasha at all. I mean, if this study leads to the forcing them to release them all, great. But yeah, right now there's nothing at all connecting them. I also found, I did a bunch of fucking research on this. I found this old blog called Private Investigator News and Information that's been archived on this site, Scribd, in screenshot form. So it's just screenshotted. And they're talking about, this is during the fucking original Epstein investigation in 2006 from Roy Black, who was one of Epstein's lawyers. He passed away in 2022 or something like that. But he's talking about Mr. Riley and Mr. Kiraly, the guys from this thing, and going over that. So anyway, I don't really need to go over this. This is just trust me on this. This is not the same guy. So all of this corroborating information, which originally I did find to be kind of convincing. I was like, oh shit, William Riley does show up in the Epstein files. That's something. Maybe he does work for Epstein. And then I looked more into it. It's like, he's not a pilot, because that's what Sasha said. He was Epstein's pilot. Not a pilot. He's one of his lawyers. And then when you look more into him, he has a completely contradictory life story. He just doesn't seem like the same guy. This is a completely different dude. What else we got? Okay. Yeah, let's watch this. This person did, I would say, a great job researching this. Let's just show it. A content warning for TikTok voice. But no, I think she's great, but just so you know.
Okay, now that we've had a day or two to really live with Sasha Riley's story, I'm going to take you through my deep dive process. Because so far, I have found not a single shred of evidence that discredits anything that Sasha has said. And for the record, everybody, Sasha goes by they, them pronouns, so that's how I will be referring to them. Now remember, this is all alleged, my own opinions, and please don't contact anyone. So starting in 2021, Sasha was being public about what their father did to them. They also have been publicly accusing their father of trying to unalive them, being completely consistent with what we heard in that interview. I also
Totally true. Totally agree with that. Oops.
confirmed that they did live at this address that's mentioned here. And again, all of the details are matching up. Also pay attention to the date that they were publicly coming out and talking about this right when the transfer of power to Joe Biden was happening. And after hearing the interview, we know why. I also found another picture of Sasha as a child along with Irene, the original.
I will say, very impressed by this woman's ability to dig shit up. I like to think I'm a good researcher. I don't know how the heck she found some of this shit. Yeah, Irene was the original wife, not Lynn, the really sadistic one. I think Irene and WK are divorced by 79 or so when Sasha started being trafficked out, but
Original wife. Again, we don't know how much she was involved in all of this. And I'll be honest, I couldn't find a trace of her anywhere. So I've had to put a pin in Irene for now. This is William Kyle Riley. And I'm going to try not to cry as I say this, but he and his newest wife, Cindy, and with everything in my body, I am hoping that this 6-year-old child does not live with them, even though they clearly have a room. But I did in fact confirm that William Kyle Riley is a pilot. Now through William, I was able to track down Mary Lynn Riley, and sure enough, in 2018, she's there as being dead. Through her date of death, I was able to track down the picture of this monster as well. And on the surface, it
so
seems
this
like
is Lynn, the I guess the wife who Sasha claims some of the most intense stuff about.
Normal obituary, right? Until you start reading it. Because as much as they talk about all the things about Lynn, they never talk about things like her profession, nor do they mention the time she lived in Georgia and Indiana and Missouri. These people moved around all the time, as if they were trying to keep people from catching on. And then you get to the surviving section, and there's not a single mention of anybody in the Riley family. She talks about her first husband, but not of her second one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know what to make of that. Does that seem weird not to mention in someone's obituary their ex-husband who they aren't with anymore? Although she still has the name Mary Lynn Riley. I don't really know what the purpose of that would be. Anyway.
Nor the adopted child she helped raise. Because her first husband is listed as deceased. They got married the year after they left high school. So who raised their children? Because I sure as fuck hope that they weren't living with this woman. A woman who kept the last name Riley up until her death. I don't know, there's just something off about it. Now, I personally suspect that they were using false identities because in her background check, I found a nurse's license. Yeah, she was a nurse. A nursing license she didn't get until 1995 under the name Mary Joan Riley in the state of Indiana, of which she has no record of living there. And in the same background check, all of this I found in the same place.
I don't know. It seems like she's using a paid background check website. And I mean, I don't know. I never used one of these things. I don't really know how she would have gotten this stuff. But I'm a little bit skeptical as how reliable these things are. I don't know.
Her under Maria.
I do feel a little bit uncomfortable here with even the people who are still alive showing pictures of them and stuff. But it's out there. People have been talking about these people.
Riley, and she lived on Trump Drive in Indiana. Anyway,
the Trump Drive thing. She gets into it in a second here.
I looked up the address. It was in a trailer park, and I looked up the whole trailer park that it's in. And guys, the rest of these streets are like names of people.
Okay, so we'll stop here for a second. Yeah, she's got a trailer park here. There is a Trump Drive, Bassett Drive, Happy House Drive, Dustin, Mindy, Ashley, Joe, Tammy, Renee, Barb Wood, Samantha. So Samantha was another character from the story. And people asked Sasha about this on Threads. Someone says, I'm working on corroboration. Sasha, have you seen this? Do you know anything about this? And then showing the screenshots from this video. And Sasha actually responded, I just learned about this recently. It looks like I think he being Trump, named the streets after the people he killed or had killed. So that's what Sasha says about these streets. Jacob, Kirk, Megan, Dustin, Travis, Mindy. Yeah, Trump Drive. And yeah, really? I mean, okay. I don't know. I find this very weird. Tizzle Bacon. The only part that's not believable is that every street in Indiana isn't called Trump Drive. That's funny. I wonder when they changed the name. Was it called Trump Drive before 2016? I don't know. But this is pretty weak to me.
Megan, Ashley, Joe, Tammy, Renee, Dustin, Mindy, Travis. I mean, the fact that they lived on Trump Drive in a trailer park with Samantha Drive, I fully recognize that it's basically nothing. But Trump likes to put his name on everything. I just hope this isn't like a weird trophy of some kind. I want to bring this back to wife number 3 for a second because Cindy, I have some questions about. Because I had this weird feeling that William K. Riley was the kind of guy who would put things in his spouse's name to cover up his involvement. And one of the properties that was listed under her and William had been previously owned by the Deutsche Bank.
This is my favorite part. Okay, so I'm a millennial and I don't know nothing about home ownership or what that's like or what the process is like, but I don't think it's weird. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. If anybody in the chat has their shit together and has thought about home ownership, is it weird that this home that they lived in was previously owned by the Dutch Bank or the Deutsche Bank or whatever she calls it? To me, that just seems like it had a mortgage on it. Isn't that how mortgages work?
I had this weird feeling that William K. Riley was the kind of guy who would put things in his spouse's name to cover up his involvement. And one of the properties that was listed under her and William had been previously owned by the Deutsche Bank.
The Deutsche Bank.
That Dutch bank. The Dutch bank that Epstein talked about all the time.
Yeah, I mean, he's connecting it to Epstein because of whatever. It's okay.
Being Trump's downfall. The same bank that was sued by Epstein's victims for $75 million. The same bank that was subpoenaed by the Manhattan DA.
No shit. No shot, God viewers on it. Oh, man. Yeah, probably not, though. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have a mortgage. That's how they work, but I can barely read. Yeah, I mean, this is how a lot of the world works. That doesn't seem weird to me at all. I think it's very funny to connect it to Epstein. Oh, man. I just realized I didn't mention, because Epstein doesn't really come up a lot in this story, right? In Sasha's story, but he does come up. He mentions meeting Epstein once or twice. I don't really remember him. I remember Guylaine. Sasha says he remembers Guylaine because he remembers his mother being really nervous about pronouncing her name correctly. Anyway, we'll get more into that in a second.
The one that Trump sued to block the release of? The one that was fined $150 million for working with Epstein?
Yeah, it's like, no, yeah, banks are awful, and a lot of them are directly implicated in Epstein shit. But I don't think we can jump to any conclusions because a home that the Rileys lived in was previously owned by this bank. That's just kind of how mortgages work, right?
What would a little single-family residence in Georgia be doing owned by a trust from the Dutch Bank? A trust that was out of Richmond, Virginia. Now, silly me, I was so flabbergasted with that discovery that I forgot to take a screen grab of the address that was associated with. So today, when I went to go find the address again, I went to Cindy's profile and this happened.
Right. And I'm sure that a lot of these people are kind of realizing that they're being kind of cyber stalked and shutting their stuff down.
That's not the only weird thing about these properties, because I just chose a property at random. When I say that there was probably about 15 addresses listed for these people, I'm not exaggerating. And a lot of sketchy P.O. boxes. But this property in Georgia was sold to an Anthony and Cheryl Cisco. Now, according to his own website, he's an author.
I mean, he's going, now she's like, who owned it beforehand? Let's look into them. And it's like, okay, I don't really care. Skipping ahead here. Is there anything really worth going on? She finds William K. Riley's LinkedIn, and it's, oh, he was a pilot. He was a Vietnam pilot.
Because those are the same years that a lot of the, abuse was happening, according to Sasha. Because human resources sound sketchy as hell, too.
Wait, why?
And I've never seen...
We had a human resources job. She's like, human resources? What's that? It's like, no, that's a very common career
part, though, because those are the same years that sketchy as hell too. And I've never seen so many people endorse a profile before, let alone one that only has 12 years of experience listed. Speaking of weird documentation,
I think, okay, so I mean, I do think she does a good job. She uncovers a lot. I wouldn't have known how to find all this stuff. I think she kind of jumps to a lot of conclusions that I don't think that she has the evidence for it, I will say she does draw together a lot of places that we won't bother watching the rest of it. It's longer than I remembered, but she finds a lot of the places that Sasha mentions living at in some of his Facebook posts, and I think thread things. He had mentioned certain addresses. She tracks those down. She finds that, yes, it looks like someone named Riley did live there. So in broad strokes, a lot of the stuff that he says about his life does appear to be true. Where he lived when, certain things like that. This doesn't corroborate the more violent, dark, salacious parts of his story, but it at least kind of, I think, broadly corroborates it as, whatever you think happened to Sasha Riley, whatever you think is true. To me, I think it's unlikely that Sasha was not abused. I think that this guy was traumatized in some way and is largely speaking from his memory and his experiences, and a lot of his story that seems to be bearing out. So those are kind of that's about all the stuff I really care to go over for corroborating evidence. As you can see, none of it is that convincing, right? None of it that I've seen is, it's true. There is a part 3 of that video, which I wasn't able to find. Apparently she uploaded it on her TikTok and it got taken down for cyberbullying. So I don't know what was in it, but anyway, I've been trying to follow this story. I've been trying to see what other people have been saying about it. And I did genuinely think she did one of the better jobs of explaining a lot of this sort of the case for believing Sasha Riley. So, no hate to her. I think whatever's true, I think she's coming at it from a good place. Now, here's something that we haven't talked about. What happens when we look at the story? So we went over the timeline of alleged events. What happens when we take that timeline and we sort of incorporate what was going on with Epstein? Now, as it turns out, the most mysterious part of Epstein's life, the part of his life that we know the least about, happens to be I guess it would be the 80s, right? The 81 to 87 kind of era, which is exactly the same time period where Sasha was being trafficked. But Epstein has been a fascination from some of the internet's most unhinged people, myself included, for a long time. And I'll say, have done a lot of work and put a lot of effort into going over every little thing we know and trying to put together a timeline. So while we don't know everything, especially about this period, we do know some things. And when we line up the two stories, I think something interesting happens. So let me quickly go over this for you guys. So Sasha Riley, born 1973. From 1974 to 76, that's when a 21 to 23-year-old Epstein was teaching math at the Dalton Academy, this private school for fucking rich kids in New York. He was dismissed for poor performance 2 years later and was immediately swooped up by Bear Stearns, became a floor trader there because he had just perfectly managed to kind of lie his way into this position, lying about his backstory, whatever. He started dating the daughter of Ace Greenberg, one of the guys who owned Bear Stearns. He got really close to Jimmy Kane, another guy there. Eventually, he became the owner of Bear Stearns, and Jimmy Kane, apparently, Epstein was like helping him date and giving him dating advice, maybe hooking him up with people. And he just kind of started skyrocketing through the company. I don't know if that's the right word in this case, but he kept getting promoted. He was He was 23 years old when he started there, and he got promoted to options trader. Then he became an advisor for Bear Stearns' wealthiest clients. And this is all right when he started. That's what happens when you date the boss's daughter. You date one of your boss's daughters, and then your other boss, you just constantly are helping him get laid. It turns out you can move up quickly in an organization when you do that. So that's 1976, 1981. Meanwhile, Sasha is adopted by WKR, William Kyle Riley, in 1977, starts being trafficked in 1979, being abused, not in the Trump Epstein circle yet. 1980, his girlfriend dumps him, realizing that he lied about everything. That's how Lynn Greenberg describes why she broke up with him. At 1980, Epstein's 27 years old in 1980, named limited partner. That's one step below being a full partner. Like being called, change the name to Bear Stearns Epstein. You know what I mean? Not really, but you get the picture. He's 28, he's 27, named limited partner. That's crazy. This guy is extremely successful. He's apparently the youngest person ever to be named this at the time at Bear Stearns. And he's making about, in 2025 dollars, $800,000 a year at Bear Stearns. At this point, he begins regularly flying to Palm Beach to visit young women there. Starts dating around. 1980, as we saw, he's featured as a Bachelor of the Month in Cosmo. He's quoted as seeking a cute Texas girl. Interesting. 1980, Epstein gets in trouble for flying to the Caribbean on Bear Stearns' dime. Aside from the flight, when he gets there, he buys $10,000 worth of clothing and jewelry for his girlfriend, and he charges it all on the company card. While people are upset, this does not lead to any consequences for Epstein. Yes, drugs as well, I forgot to say. Jimmy Kane was really Epstein's Bear Stearns vessel, as well as Greenberg, but I feel like Kane enabled him more. I think so too. Hard to say for sure, but yeah, that's what I think. Okay, so 1980, this is when William K. Riley became involved in the Trump/Epstein trafficking ring. So he starts going to these bare knuckle boxing parties, by this time at the latest. This already, it's like, wait, what? Epstein is 27 years old. He's the fucking wunderkind of Bear Stearns. He's flying to the Caribbean. He's flying to Florida. He's hanging out with all of these billionaires and stuff. But this is apparently when Epstein is supposed to be this party planner working for Trump, doing these parties, not in New York, not in, Palm Beach, not in even California or somewhere like that, not in the Caribbean, but in Alabama, Tennessee, Texas. It doesn't really match, right? In fact, it doesn't match at all. 1981, Epstein begins dating Paula Hale, junior saleswoman at Bear Stearns, former Miss Indianapolis. She comes from a world of wealth and privilege, and she starts flying Epstein to England. And this is where he meets Nick Leese, Douglas Leese, and Julian Leese, the Leeses. Julian he becomes a tutor for him. Epstein's a math whiz, so he's, I guess, teaching Julian math, hanging out with Douglas and Nick all the time. Nick is introducing him to all these Wall Street types in New York. Douglas takes him under his wing and starts mentoring him. Douglas Leese being a notorious arms dealer who is involved in the 80s in Iran-Contra and, all kinds of sketchy deals, introduces him to Adnan Khashoggi, Middle East. His world is suddenly becoming huge, right? He is Epstein from little fucking Jeffrey Epstein from Coney Island has managed to actually infiltrate this larger world of not just the wealthy socialites, but the genuine power elite, the people who orchestrate world events. Not to sound like Alex Jones here, but this is when that starts. Hoffenberg, who he later works with, he claims that Epstein was recruited by Leese to work for British intelligence at this point. And in fact, Epstein himself would go around telling people that he was actually a spy, an intelligence agent for various agencies, he said. Is that true? That's up for you to decide. Personally, I doubt it at this point. But yes, so yeah, the Leases considered Epstein part of the family. In 81, he's caught doing insider trading with his girlfriend and a high school buddy of his. It's a Regulation D violation. I don't know. Bear Stearns apparently wanted to fine him $2,500, which is nothing compared to what he, earned from it. This is how white collar crime works, by the way. You'll never be fined anything even close to what it's worth. But even that was so offensive to Epstein that he just quit. He full on quit Bear Stearns over this. But he maintained very close friendships with Ace Greenberg and what the fuck's his name? Jimmy Kane. So very odd. But he left 81 to 87. This is, as I mentioned earlier, this is the most mysterious period of Epstein's life. Ostensibly, he worked as a financial troubleshooter. No one really knows what that means. He founded a consulting firm, Intercontinental Assets Group, Inc., ostensibly recovering stolen money from fraudulent brokers and lawyers. Epstein claimed this work was like being a high-level bounty hunter. He claimed he sometimes acted as a consultant for governments or wealthy elites to recover stolen or embezzled money. He often talks about his work he talks about this work to the Lises, and they're all kind of like, okay, buddy, whatever you say, man. At some point here, he does meet Adnan Khashoggi, whether it was when, at some point before 1987, as Hoffenberg claims, or later, we don't know, but at some time in the 80s. Meanwhile, Sasha is living in Alabama, not on a farm, but he's in Alabama, being trafficked to all these barn parties with the live music, bare knuckle boxing, and child abuse. And he's given to people in the Trump Epstein ring. You know, he's trafficked to Trump. He's trafficked whatever, all over the place. 1981 to 82, early 80s. This is the first time he meets Trump. Then in 82, Epstein starts dating Ava Anderson, model and former Miss Sweden, who is, a lot of people consider this was probably the love of Epstein's life, the closest thing he had to that. They remain friends forever. Even after his death, she's still supporting him and defending him and stuff. He also was dating, while he's dating her and apparently in love with her or whatever, the closest thing that Epstein was personally capable of to love, he's also dating other women, including Ana Obregon, a Spanish heiress who hired Epstein to recover millions lost by her father in fraudulent investment scheme. He's, at this point in 83, photographed, and I have some photos here. He's photographed at a party at the Children's Diabetes Foundation in Denver. So this is the first photograph we have of Epstein. You can see him on the left there. Might be a little hard to see, but yeah, that's him. I mean, he's hanging it. So this is what's the heck is their name? The Davises, I think. This is another wealthy family, the Davises, I believe. And here's Epstein with one of the Davises. I forget her name. I should have written it down. But it looks like he's there on a date with her. And this is her mom. It's like mom, girl, and Epstein on a date with them. And you can see them in the background holding hands, and she's laughing at him and stuff. He's doing his thing. He's making moves. Epstein mostly seems to have infiltrated this world through dating people. He was very good at wheeling rich girls. I mean, I have all these photos from the fucking night. Look at all who was there. There's photos of, this is Gerald Ford, Nixon's vice president who became president after Nixon left. Look at this one. That's Kissinger. Can you guys see? Fuck, I can't zoom in anymore. Oh, man. All right, well, whatever. There's Kissinger's there. Betty Ford, is that Betty Ford, Gerald Ford's wife? Barbara Davis is the old one. Marvin Davis. A bunch of fucking billionaires. There's Kenny Rogers. Where's Kenny Rogers? You got to know when to hold him. Know when to hold him, know when to hold him, know when to hold him. Anyway, so yeah, he's at these elite, high-class, socialite, upper elite parties. But then apparently he's also chilling in Texas and Alabama and stuff, doing these really kind of intense parties, according to Sasha. That's the Diabetes Foundation party he was at. Now, I think there are some very credible conspiracy theories. And again, I don't say that in a derogatory sense. I mean, I think this one is real. Yeah, Michigan football player Gerald Ford and model, not to forget, male model Gerald Ford. Yeah. If you guys want to go down the rabbit hole on Gerald Ford, I highly recommend the podcast Fourth Reich Archaeology. They have a massive series on Gerald Ford. Oh my God, it's so crazy. That guy got into some stuff. Islands in the stream. Epstein's Island in the stream. Interesting. But yeah, sorry, got a little bit off topic. But yeah, Fourth Reich Archaeology, check it out. Gerald Ford, very interesting guy. Now, we're going to get into Iran-Contra. Now, it's not 100% proven that Epstein was involved in this, but a lot of people are involved with Iran-Contra who later know Epstein very well. Let's put it like that, including his surrogate father, Douglas Leese, who is clandestinely funding the Iranian arms that are being shipped to Israel in order to be shipped to Iran, I believe. And there's a whole fucking weird secret triangle involving the Contras and cocaine being shipped to America. Weapons are being shipped to Nicaragua. You know, all of this stuff is going on at the same time. And this is all like CIA kind of shit, working with all these fucking sleazy, seedy arms dealers like Douglas Leese. And yeah, it's a little bit weird. Apparently, around this period of time, 83 to 85 era, the leases, or at least Douglas Lease, cut Epstein off because Douglas Lease has hired him and has given him a company card. So just like at Bear Stearns, when Epstein was just doing everything in the company card and didn't really give a fuck, he finds out that Epstein's been abusing the expense account, charging personal flights and nights at luxury hotels. Epstein's been doing this. So he cuts him off. He fires him. And then after this, it seems like Epstein was kind of broke. Epstein was like bouncing rent checks and shit from 83 to 85. So he started a business with this guy, J.S. Pottinger, who's also a big fucking Iran-Contra guy, and Pottinger's brother. And they open up a office in just off of Central Park, where Epstein apparently stiffed the broker on the commission, didn't pay him. But what they're doing, the point of this business they start is to pitch tax avoidance schemes to the wealthy. Like, oh, you should have a fucking island in the Virgin Islands where we register your business so you don't have to pay taxes, shit like that. You know, doing the stuff that makes the world broken, basically. So that's weird that he was doing that with Lease at this time. And another guy connected to Epstein who was involved in this, Israel, a big part of Iran-Contra. They're kind of like the middleman hiding where the money is going and where the arms are flowing from. And at this time, from 83 to 85, Ehud Barak, a later very good friend of Epstein slash, client slash rapist, Ehud Barak was the head of Israeli military intelligence, AMAN. And he was that for the entire planning phase of the Iran-Israel trade scheme that these guys were cooking up. Now he claims that he'd never met Epstein until 2003, when they were introduced by the Israeli prime minister at that time, Shimon Peres. So is that true? I mean, who knows? I would say no. I would say you don't need to believe anything that comes out of that fucking guy's mouth about anything. So this is when Sasha's at the brothel. That doesn't seem to have anything to do with Epstein. He goes into foster care. He gets trained by Jane Goodall. Meanwhile, Epstein, he's been hired by his wealthy girlfriend, Anna Obregon, and her father, who has lost a ton of money. And he actually finds it somehow. And nobody really knows how he accomplishes this, but he finds that this money has been embezzled and it's been hidden in this maze of shell companies and fucking weird, offshore accounts. And it's actually now in a Canadian bank's branch in the Cayman Islands. And so him and Pottinger, is it Pottinger or is it some other guy? I forget. Him and whoever his partner is for this, they actually get on a plane and fly to the Cayman Islands to this branch. And they go in there and they're like, hey, we work for Obregon and we know that's his money and we're not leaving unless you give us these certified checks, whatever, bond certificates. I don't really know how it fucking works. So they asked for these bond certificates and the bank was like, okay, here you go, Epstein and his friend. And they walked in there with briefcases full of bond certificates and flew it back to Obregon. So, I mean, Epstein's whole fucking money shit that he was doing in this period doesn't make a lot of sense. And it doesn't seem like he was really doing much, but he claimed he was a financial bounty hunter, helping people recover lost and stolen funds. But it does appear, at least from a few eyewitness accounts, that is exactly what he did in this case. Who knows? But it's really weird. How the fuck did he find that? I don't know what he did, but apparently he did. Now, in 1984, Epstein's old roommate, Pottinger, who I should mention also in a weird fucking bookends of history, Pottinger ends up joining Bradley Edwards in the case later as a lawyer to prosecute Epstein. What the fuck is up with that? I should devote an entire stream to Pottinger and taking the Pottinger pill. But yeah, anyway, that's way too big to get into right now. But Pottinger is identified. He's not charged or indicted or anything, but he's identified in a FBI federal indictment where they're investigating Iran-Contra against his client Hashemi for illegal arms exports. Hashemi is in trouble. He flies to England. He escapes. Pottinger had been helping Hashemi by doctoring fake invoices and opening up shell companies, something that Epstein was also heavily involved in, this sort of work. And he was helping Iranians, subvert, to helping them go around the arms embargo that was on them. So he was helping out with this kind of funneling weapons and, money back and forth between Iran, Israel, wherever, all this shit. Yeah, sounds like a conflict of interest. It does, right? Pottinger. All right. So that's what Epstein's busy. He's flying around. He's spending a lot of time in England. He's spending a lot of time in Palm Beach, spending a lot of time in New York. He is doing crazy fucking money moves here. Do we think, look in your heart, ask yourself, do we think it's possible that Epstein was also party planning? Something that he never really did. He never This is not something he ever did. When Epstein was doing trafficking, child trafficking, it was very different. This happened during the 90s. It happened with the help of someone like Ghislaine Maxwell. It happened with the help of someone like Jean-Luc Brunel. It happened with a lot of people cooperating, creating this pyramid scheme of abuse. Teenage girls, 14, 15, 16, 17, coming over to his house to give massages, this elaborate kind of ruse he would do. Very, very different from having essentially young children, boys and girls, 8 to 12 years old, as slaves on rural, farm circus parties with tents and boxing and live music. This is a completely different way to any type of trafficking that we know about Epstein doing. And it doesn't make sense for the time period that we're talking about here. Moving on here, he has his final encounter with Donald Trump in somewhere between 1984 to 86. Epstein we don't even have any record of Donald Trump and Epstein knowing each other until about 1987. This is when Michael Wolff says that they met. But we don't have any photos of them. We don't have any evidence of them together. Epstein himself does not have planes at this time. He charters planes, or is that the right word? He uses planes whenever he has a company card. But during this time, he does not have his own planes. He does not hire his own pilots. So when Sasha says that his father, William K. O'Reilly, was a pilot for Epstein doesn't have pilots at this time. He's not that big a fish yet. He doesn't have his private jets. He doesn't get those until later. But nonetheless, 85, this is where he's at the party with Jim Jordan. He has his final encounter with Donald Trump in 86. At some point before this, I'm not exactly sure when, I guess I forgot to put it in this doc here, but his parents speak about meeting Ghislaine, and he remembers meeting Ghislaine and Epstein. Epstein and Ghislaine, we don't have any record that they were ever together or knew each other before 1991. Ghislaine, in her interview with Todd Blanche recently, said that she met Epstein in 1991. As far as we know, from people who talk about them together, Vicky Ward's reporting, Julie K. Brown's reporting, everything that we know about Ghislaine and Epstein, we have no record of them knowing each other before 1991. In fact, a lot of people go into Ghislaine's father, right? Robert Maxwell. We have no evidence that Robert Maxwell and Epstein met ever at any point. But even that aside, this is supposedly when this took place, when the Trump/Epstein network was going on, according to Sasha, was the 80s, the early 80s. If that's true, that completely contradicts everything that we've learned about Epstein and his business and his trafficking organization. This is a completely new Epstein timeline. Do you understand what I'm saying? This does not make any sense. Yeah. Robert Maxwell directly went to Kane and Greenberg to get info on Epstein in 1991. If they knew each other before that, why would he do that? Yeah. It sort of makes sense that he would do that knowing that his daughter was dating this guy. Who is this guy? Oh, you guys know him? What's he like? So yeah, I'll skip ahead here again. But I feel like I kind of made my point, but I'll keep going here. He's talking about, okay, he kicks the thing into Trump's butt. Trump goes to the hospital. Then he has to get punished and he gets tortured by a bunch of hillbillies. He has a deformed rib cage now. 1985. This is when the Iran-Contra affair is happening. We know that Epstein is close friends with Adnan Khashoggi. Epstein travels frequently between the US, Europe, and the Middle East. At this time, he had a fake Austrian passport showing his place of residence as Saudi Arabia. This is a global kind of guy, right? This is Mr. Worldwide, all right? This is his Pitbull era. Again, we have evidence of him traveling quite a bit. We have no evidence of him spending a lot of time in pedophile farms in the South. In 1985, Hashemi, the guy who fled to England, who was, selling shit to Iran, Adnan Khashoggi, and Israel Prime Minister Shimon Peres, they meet together in Hamburg, West Germany, and they discuss a CIA-backed plot to have Israel ship the weapons to Iran. The U.S. will pay them back later. 86. So I kind of got into that before. I forget the fucking timeline of Iran-Contra, but there's a lot of weird Epstein connections with that. After the Trump thing where he injures him, but a week to a month later, there's a final one that he goes to, which is where Andy Biggs is at. Okay, at this time, Epstein begins a relationship with Bear Stearns secretary Patricia Schmidt. And while he's dating her, he sort of gets her to do research for him on his clients and be like, go to the Bear Stearns library and tell me everything you know about this guy. He has an insider in Bear Stearns. 86, Epstein meets Les Wexner. This is where he does a bunch of work for Les Wexner. I mean, this is 86 is also the year Sasha ends his time being trafficked to Epstein and Trump people through this network. But, I'll just I guess, I don't know. There's a whole thing. I mean, I could get into it more, but I don't know. You know what? I think I'm going to just much Trump did at that last party he was at. I'm going to airlift out of this timeline here. There's more, but I've gone over most of the years where Sasha claimed he was going through all this stuff. I've kind of made my point. The timeline simply doesn't line up. I think that I have compassion for, victims of abuse, survivors of abuse, and I don't expect everyone's story to be perfect. I think it's totally understandable if there are small errors and small mistakes. And in fact, that's the norm, right? Even when Virginia was recounting her abuse by Epstein, Virginia Giuffre, got her age wrong when she said she met Ghislaine. I think she said she was 15, something like that, but it turned out she was 16. I forget the exact numbers, but this is a common thing. And a lot of people will point at victims of abuse, their stories, and be like, wait a minute, you got this wrong. Okay, the whole thing must be wrong, right? But in this case, the Epstein thing and the Trump thing, they're so intertwined, right? They are it was apparently Epstein organizing this whole thing. And the fact that he could not have been involved, in my view, is, I think, troubling, right? Now, did any of this happen? I'm sure a lot of it did. I mean, we know from research, the stuff done by, what's this person's name? Jay Megan, that at least the times and periods and places that he moved, and, then his father's kind of military history and career as a helicopter pilot, all of that stuff kind of lines up. But that isn't the important stuff here, right? We really need to be taking these abuse allegations against these powerful Republicans seriously. But, not only does the Epstein timeline not fit at all with the Sasha Riley timeline, it's also, these allegations are so much more brutal than anything that anyone has ever alleged against Epstein, right? They're so much worse. There are boys involved. That's a new thing. There are deaths, tortures, snuff films, real hurtcore shit that we have so many stories from Epstein survivors, right? The survivor sisters. And they line up, right? They line up. You can listen to Maria Farmer, you can listen to Virginia Giuffre, you can listen to all these people. You can get Epstein's MO, they repeat the same names, they repeat the same locations, they repeat the same, ways that Epstein would abuse them and the things he would say to them, and it all fits. This story is so completely different in basically every conceivable way that, I like to be as charitable as possible when I'm talking about conspiracy theories, right? Even when I discuss stuff like Pizzagate or QAnon, where I don't personally believe it, I don't want to come off condescending. I don't want to come off smug. Actually, debunked. Snopes.com says this. And in truth, I don't know for 100% sure whether or not the Sasha Riley story is true, or if there's, anything worthwhile here. It may be true, parts of it may be true, parts of it may be false. But I have to say, if I were to give you my kind of best guess as to whether the story is true or not, and I were to put it into a percentage, it would be probably less than 1%. I really do not think this is true. And that's my personal belief. And if you are still a big Sasha Riley person, that's cool. I know that it's hard to kind of change your mind on things like this. And I mean, maybe you're right. When I started looking into it, I wanted to believe it. This does, I guess, kind of satisfy my own political leanings. I don't like Trump. I am a very anti-Trump guy. Don't get the wrong idea, right? I'm not a MAGA dude at all. Sometimes I get people in my comments. When I made a video about Clinton and being whatever, I got a lot of people being like, oh yeah, well at least I'm not a MAGA idiot. I'm like, I'm not a MAGA guy. I think Trump's a pedophile for sure. But this story, I just don't buy it. There's a reason why our boy, the presidential penis, has banned a discussion about this on r/Epstein. These stories do not line up. They do not line up with what we know of the case. And this is not the first person in the Epstein universe who's come forward and said, I'm a victim of Epstein. And then they've turned out not to be. That's happened before. It's not very common, but it does happen. And I think, something that I do a lot on here, and I've talked about this many times on the stream, but a sort of, I guess, a technique that I have to really help myself to kind of empathize with conspiracy theories that I don't necessarily believe in is I look at conspiracy theories as a form of satire, right? Even if they're totally, bonkers, whatever, talking about aliens and shape-shifting demons and stuff like that. If you can look at conspiracy theories sometimes as like kind of unintentional satire, where it's like, what does this say about how people feel about these people? For example, there's a part where he talks about Trump having a kink for torturing people, where he's talking about the time that Trump forced him to watch as he murdered a bunch of puppies. So hang on.
He wanted to kill those puppies in whatever gruesome way, just the experience, I guess, seeing them suffer in different ways. What his kink is, I guess, if you want to call it that, is watching people suffer. He likes to destroy people physically, mentally during the process of the assault. That's why he stands out so much in my memory. And it's physical pain, and then it's also degrading and all of that. But his thing was to just try to destroy human beings to the utmost that he could possibly do it, which is why I attacked him.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So I think this, on a satirical level, I think this speaks to people, certain people who are, liberals. They don't like Trump. They sort of are confused by how someone like him could be so cruel. And so the way he's acting as president and the way he kind of governs, why does he do this? What on earth, what kind of person would be whatever? You know what I'm saying? And I think that on a satirical level, on a level of wanting to believe Trump does these things because simply he likes watching people suffer, I think that speaks to people in a lot of ways. And it sort of helps them understand the world in a weird way, right? I think that it's easy to believe that for certain people that Trump does this. I don't think that that's literally a good explanation of Trump. I mean, I definitely think, Trump does not care much for easing people's suffering. I just don't think he cares. But I think that the reasons why there's so much suffering under Trump are kind of more complex than just this is what he wants, right? I think he's motivated by enriching himself and enriching his friends, and he's a narcissist or whatever. And here I am sounding kind of like I'm just trying to psychoanalyze the guy, but it's so over the top. And there is another part that I wanted to play as well. It's where he describes torturing, you know what, I won't even bother finding it, but it's the part where he describes kicking the stake into Trump's butt. And the person he's telling the story to actually laughed. And he's like, oh, there you go. That's right. And I think that part of the story is very satisfying to libs to be like, and he stabbed him in the butt because he's, evil. I think that that's something that liberals are very happy to hear. And there were some weird parts there where, I'll show this.
Because Trump was incontinent because of drugs.
So, okay. So person who's interviewing him.
That's what my sense is that some of the gossip has been, Trump had used Adderall. Trump was incontinent because of drug use.
Okay. So,
but
I heard that.
I'm wondering.
I use Adderall every day, and I paused the thing. I was like, what, Adderall can make you incontinent? And I looked it up, and yeah, it turns out that I guess Adderall can cause temporary urinary incontinence or whatever. But she goes on about, well, obviously Trump uses diapers. And I was like, Trump uses diapers? What? I hadn't heard this. But this is actually a lib conspiracy theory that's been around for a while, that Trump uses diapers. I mean, maybe he does. I don't know. The guy's 88 years old or something, right? He's ancient. But this is sort of similar to the Q Anon thing, where it's a big tent conspiracy, where it folds in all of the other conspiracies that people believe in. And it's actually, yes, the moon landing was fake, and JFK was killed by the CIA, and all this. And that's all related to what Q is telling us. Yes, come one, come all kind of thing. And this conspiracy theory, the William Sasha Riley one, is attracting a lot of crystal mommies and, blue Anon types, libs who believe that Trump is incontinent and wears diapers, which is not that far-fetched, don't get me wrong. But the way that they talk about it as though it's, well, obviously he uses diapers, but maybe it's not because of the Adderall. It could be because of what you did to him in the 80s. Yeah. An 80-year-old using a diaper is not news. No, I mean, it's not. But I just think it's so funny. And I'm sorry to say any of this is funny. It's horrific. But there's something sort of darkly amusing to me about how similar this is to QAnon shit and to Pizzagate shit, and how a lot of conspiracy theories that we believe tend to be the ones that reinforce the political views that we have, right? There are not a lot of people who support Hillary Clinton who fell into Pizzagate shit or QAnon shit. They tended to be much more level-headed about that and be more like, guys, there's no actual proof of this. Look at this. This is actually fake. This is wrong. Let's be real about this. But when it comes to something like this, I think it's interesting how libs can kind of see a Sasha Riley case and be like, no, this makes so much sense. This actually fits with all these other things. And so I will say I have a ton of understanding and empathy as a guy who's tends to be a little bit conspiratorial myself. Maybe that's an understatement as to what these people believe. I get it. I've been there. What I'm looking at right now is another person who did, like I did, went through the whole thing and wrote an entire timeline of everything based on all this disorganized kind of interview that the guy had, and even kind of put stuff in from Trump's life and Epstein's life. But I just thought it was interesting reading them writing about it, because some of the things, for example, Sasha talks about, he recalls at one point, law enforcement blackmailing them. And then the person writing this in brackets put, this is what the cop outfits are for, because cop outfits have been photographed in Epstein's home on Little St. James, I believe. That's been coming out in the Epstein files. And it's like, I can tell that this person who's writing this, I know that they mean well, and it seems they really believe what they're writing. I don't think that they're intentionally spreading disinformation. But I just think it's so interesting because I can tell this person doesn't know a lot about Epstein. The cop outfit, that's from way later. That's from the 20-teens, right? We're talking about shit that happened in the 80s. And yeah, I find it very interesting. It's almost, I like this kind of shit, I find it like beautiful in a way, right? Because we have so much fucking shit where we seem different, right? Like Republicans and liberals, how much work is done trying to show that we have different brains, and liberals think like this and conservatives think like this, and that's why they are so conspiratorial and shit like this. It's kind of beautiful to me in a way, because it's like, no, actually, we're all kind of nuts. Wherever you are on the political spectrum, you are susceptible to falling into a rabbit hole like this and getting kind of whatever, you know what I mean? It's like when a black person is homophobic and you're like, oh, you know what? Everybody can be bigoted. It's kind of nice. It's not good, obviously, but it's, I don't know, maybe it just eases my white guilt a little bit. I think another aspect of this that I've been sort of considering is, maybe this isn't true, but the people it's going after in a satirical sense, Trump, Lindsey Graham, Clarence Thomas, Andy Biggs, I guess, Epstein. These are awful people, right? Whether or not Trump was killing puppies and shit, Trump did have a child trafficking operation known as the fucking Miss Teen USA pageants and fucking T models and Trump models and all these fucking exploitative sex trafficking fronts that he had disguised as modeling corporations that he ran. He was constantly accused of sexual assault and rape and sexual harassment all through basically his entire life. This guy was socializing with known pedophiles, not just Epstein, but John Casablancas and others. This guy has staffed his current administration with almost nobody but fucking accused rapists. This is real. In a way, as Naomi Klein writes in Doppelganger, conspiracy theorists often have the facts wrong, but the feelings right. In broad strokes, what they're saying about Trump and Epstein is not untrue. It's just once you get into specifics, it's like, okay, well, this isn't it. But the accusations themselves are not untrue. And even aside from all that shit, the shit that Trump is doing, the shit that he is defunding, the shit that he is encouraging does cause immense amounts of suffering. So if you look at things in a less literal, more satirical sense, are these allegations untrue? You know what I mean? And I also think about this. This is a post from 4chan during Pizzagate. This is from Friday, October 14th, 2016. So leading up to the election here. And all the Anons on 4chan's poll board were kind of going through the Podesta files and trying to find shit and that proved Hillary was a pedophile. And then they discovered actually the main thing we were basing all this on is complete bullshit. And this person posts, remember the whole pizza.jpg bullshit? Exhibit A is to why we need to stop shitting our pants over every little fucking thing in these leaks. Promote the real shit. When you flood media with baseless, meaningless noise, they don't pay attention when we find useful info. And I often think about this post. This may be the 4chan post that takes up the most fucking space in my brain because I feel like a lot of times on my channel, I'm debunking a lot of conspiracy theories about people that I don't like. You know, this person is not a fan of Hillary. This person is, I mean, they're on the fucking 4chan poll boards. There's more than 50% chance that this person is an actual Nazi, right? This person doesn't like Hillary, but they're just like, guys, it's factually incorrect. Can we pick something new, please? It's not going to work. People aren't going to believe us. And we can say with the benefit of hindsight, this person was completely wrong. This person was completely incorrect. When you flood media with baseless, meaningless noise, they don't pay attention when we find useful info? No, actually. That baseless, meaningless noise, that did swing the election. That was one of the things that swung the election in favor of Trump. Now, in this case, we're not leading up to an election. We're not in a position where we're, you know, something like this, I don't think is really going to cause a big change. Every one of these libs is like, oh, this needs to be investigated. Whether or not you believe it, we need to open the Epstein files. We need to blah, blah, blah. We need to go to court. Trump, Lindsey Graham, blah, blah, blah. These people should be arrested right now. And it's like, we don't want that to happen. That would be a waste of resources, a waste of effort that probably is going to just end up backfiring, right? And yeah, I don't know. I'm of two minds. I'm of two minds here. Maybe you guys can tell how much I'm struggling with this because, yeah, I personally think it's extremely low likelihood that this is anything, but I don't know. Who knows, right? I will say Jay Megan, right? Like this person seems new to the case, right? A lot of people on threads, they probably don't know that much about Epstein, right? These are people who are new. A lot of people who are kind of blowing up the Epstein subreddit about Sasha Riley's shit. I don't think that they had really been on the Epstein subreddit before. And so I can sort of forgive, you know, getting really into it. But I will say I have seen a lot of conspiracy influencers and people who I know have a deeper understanding of the Epstein case, you know, beyond surface level understanding what's been going on. They've been covering it for years. And I'm seeing a lot of those guys also cover the Sasha Riley case very uncritically and even being like, this is true. And I'm like, but you know it's not true. And that's what kind of gets me. Those people kind of get to me. And I won't name any names because I don't want to start drama, but it does bug me a little bit. And I understand the impulse because I mean, I know that some people here who maybe tuned in to watch the stream are big Sasha Riley guys and maybe hearing me kind of give my opinion on it might have upset some people. I don't know. But either way, I still don't think it's worth it. I'm interested in the truth. I'm not interested in pushing an agenda or, you know, jumping on something that's popular and whatever, using it to blow me up. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love if I got more subscribers. That would be great. But I don't want to do it by pushing some bullshit theory that I don't even believe. You get me? Anyway, I thought it would be a little fun way to end by watching this video here.
Before we begin, I need to speak.
Spirit-led look at truth, trauma, and what's still hidden.
Spirit, is there truth to what William Sasha Riley shared in these interviews? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Is Sasha Riley describing real events that he personally lived through to the best of his memory?
Awesome.
Yes, thank you. Is what remains hidden more severe than what the public currently understands?
I don't even see how is she getting yes from this. Oh, it's yes is up here. Is that where it's going?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Does physical or digital evidence related to these
Oh, it's yes at the top and at the bottom. I guess no is side to side.
allegations still exist?
Kind of looks like it's going yes, but not yet.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Spirit, was Jeffrey
I did find it funny because we don't have to watch the whole thing, but I did find it kind of cool. This is not the only video like this. There's a ton of videos right now where people are trying to investigate the Sasha Riley stuff by doing tarot readings or shaking a crystal on a chain over a piece of Bristol board or whatever. there's a lot of this is the sort of crowd, like I was saying, the crystal mommies who are getting really into this. And it's so similar to QAnon shit, except I will say they are much better at properly gendering non-binary people. I don't remember that being really a thing during QAnon, but you know what though? If Sasha Riley can pull some of these pilled crystal mommies out of the QAnon sphere and into the whatever blue anon sphere, that is probably good for the world. That is probably good for the world. Probably good for, I don't know, trans rights and I don't know, voting among that demographic. So maybe it's not a totally bad thing that this is happening. What if spirits are real and you can talk to them, but they're also fucking stupid? That's true. That's true. What if the spirit she's talking to is also implicated in the Sasha Riley story? Asking the real questions, Magar. Also, thank you so much for the $5. I very much appreciate that. Giving you a heart. Gang, I don't know why I was struggling so much to talk about this. If you're a disembodied spirit, you're in a sense everywhere. And so you were on Epstein's island and jet. Yeah. Check the flight logs. Check the flight logs. Actually, someone named Crystal Spirit wrote the flight logs at least 40 times. Appreciate the sanity check on this whole situation, Gob. Yeah. Yeah, guys. Yeah. Should we do another poll? Can I do the same poll that I did earlier? Sasha Riley. True or not? True or not, if you had to guess. And when I started the thing and I did the poll, 60% of people were like, I don't know. But then only 3 people were like, no, I think it's probably true. Most likely true, most likely false. And I'm not going to give you guys a third option on this one. Let me know what you think. Interesting. Very interesting. We've got 22 votes in, 14% most likely true, 86% most likely false. Okay, I'll take that as a debate win. So different, I know, not having the don't know option in there, but yeah, much less true. Oh yeah. For sure, it might have been people leaving. I'm sure a lot of the real pilled Sasha Riley guys did not stick around. But still, that's quite a big difference. I don't know.